Have you ever found yourself completely stuck, unable to speak even a simple sentence in English, without freezing, overthinking, or getting tangled in your own words? I completely understand how that feels. Hi everyone, my name is Ethan. I'm 29 years old, and I'm from Brazil. But just 5 months ago, I couldn't speak a single full sentence in English, not even something as basic as, "How are you?" without feeling lost in my thoughts. I was overwhelmed, frustrated, and honestly, a little embarrassed about my lack of progress. Today, I'm here to share with you exactly how I went from barely being able to say anything in English to becoming confident and fluent in just 5 months. And the best part, there was no magic trick, no expensive language courses, no moving to an English-speaking country, and definitely no wasting time on ineffective methods. I'm going to walk you through what worked for me, and I truly believe it can work for you too. If you've ever felt frustrated, stuck, or even embarrassed about your English skills, keep watching. I promise if you follow my journey step by step, you'll discover how you can take your own English skills to the next level. Let's go back to where this all started. My English learning journey didn't begin with excitement or motivation, it began with failure. And that failure changed my entire perspective on learning and language acquisition. Ever since I can remember, I've dreamed of working for an international company. My goal was to become a software engineer at a leading tech company. Coding was my passion, I loved it, and I had always excelled at it. I spent countless hours learning, developing my skills, and dedicating myself to becoming the best software engineer I could be. Finally, after years of hard work, my big opportunity came. I found a job opening at a major tech company in the United States. I eagerly applied, feeling both excited and anxious. A few weeks later, I received an email that changed everything. "Congratulations, Ethan. You've been selected for an interview." I was ecstatic. I imagined my new life working in an international environment, earning a great salary and building my career at a world-class company. It seemed like my dream was coming true, and I couldn't wait for the interview. But then, the interview happened, and it was nothing like I had imagined. I still remember that moment clearly. I logged into Zoom and saw 3 interviewers, all native English speakers. As soon as they started speaking, it felt like they had pressed the fast-forward button on their voices. I couldn't understand a word. Everything was a blur, and the anxiety I felt was overwhelming. The first question came, "Ethan, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience in software development?" Panic immediately set in. I knew the answer perfectly in my head. I had rehearsed it in my mind over and over again. But when I tried to speak, the words just wouldn't come out. I started stammering, yes, I am, software. I do coding. Many projects. Good. I am very good." There was a long silence. The interviewers just stared at me waiting. That silence felt like it was suffocating me, and it felt like my confidence was crumbling right before my eyes. They asked another question, but I couldn't answer that one either. Finally, one of the interviewers smiled politely and said, "All right, Ethan, thank you for your time." That moment was devastating. It felt like my dream had come crashing down right in front of me. But here's what I want to tell you. That moment wasn't the end of my dream. It was the beginning of something much more important. It became the turning point that set everything in motion, forcing me to take action and completely change my approach to learning English. Let's pick up right where we left off. That moment of failure hit me harder than I ever expected. It truly changed everything for me. As the interview ended, and the polite yet dismissive words, "Thank you for your time," echoed in my mind, I realized the harsh truth: I didn't get the job. And it wasn't because I didn't have the technical skills or expertise required for the role I had that in abundance. It was because my English skills weren't up to par. I couldn't communicate my thoughts effectively, and that alone was enough to stop me from achieving my dream. That moment made me fully realize just how powerful language is, not just as a tool for communication, but as a key that unlocks opportunities. The power of English was not just in speaking it, but in what it could bring into my life: the ability to connect with people from different cultures, access better job opportunities, and ultimately step into the global world I wanted to be part of. I had the knowledge, but without the ability to speak fluently, I was invisible. And that was a wake-up call I couldn't ignore. I felt embarrassed, ashamed, angry at myself. For years, I had brushed off the importance of English, telling myself I don't need English. If I'm good at my job, that will be enough. I convinced myself that being a software engineer good at coding was the most important thing. But after that interview, the truth was undeniable. Without English, I was left standing on the outside, unable to access the very opportunities I had worked so hard to prepare for. That night, I made a decision, a life-changing decision. I was going to learn English, and I was going to learn it quickly. This wasn't just a nice-to-have skill anymore. This was a necessity for my future. It wasn't just about fluency. It was about unlocking the doors to my dreams. I couldn't wait any longer, and I knew I had to take full responsibility for my own learning. Now, most people, when they start learning English, think about signing up for expensive classes or hiring private tutors. But I didn't go down that road. Why? Because I had already tried that route, and it hadn't worked for me. About a year before that, I had paid for an online English class. The lessons involved memorizing long lists of vocabulary, drilling grammar rules, and studying exercises that felt disconnected from real-life conversations. I was spending hours trying to memorize things that I could barely use in actual dialogue. After months of this, when I tried to have a conversation, I still couldn't express myself clearly. I was overwhelmed, frustrated, and ultimately felt stuck. That experience taught me a valuable lesson. Expensive classes weren't the solution. What I needed was a method that worked in real-life situations, something that would help me actually use English, not just memorize it. I needed a system that would let me practice speaking and thinking in English in a way that was practical, natural, and engaging. That's when I created my own method, the 5-month method, a strategy focused on rapid, consistent progress. And now I want to share my method with you step by step so that you can fast-track your own language learning journey just like I did. Let's begin with Part 1, the first 15 days. The first 15 days, using what I already knew. One of the biggest mistakes many beginners make when learning a new language is believing that they need to constantly learn more words. I made this exact mistake early on. I thought that if I could just learn 1,000 new words, I would suddenly speak English fluently. But here's the truth: I already knew hundreds of words. The problem wasn't my vocabulary, it was that I didn't know how to use those words effectively when speaking. So, during my first 15 days of focused learning, I didn't waste time trying to cram more words into my brain. Instead, I focused on learning how to use the words I already knew in real practical situations. This shift in focus made all the difference in my language learning journey, and it's something I want to share with you. Here's exactly what I did during those first 15 days. Step 1. Creating a survival sentence list. The first thing I did was create a list of survival sentences, phrases that I would actually need in everyday life. I took a step back and asked myself, what do I truly need to say in English on a daily basis? From there, I wrote down 50 simple, practical sentences that would help me navigate daily interactions. Some examples included, "Hi, how are you? Can you repeat that, please? I don't understand. I am learning English. I need a coffee, please. These sentences were real-world functional phrases that I could use in a variety of situations. I didn't focus on learning random words. Instead, I concentrated on phrases I knew I would need immediately. Every morning I read these 50 sentences out loud, not just once, but 10 times each. At first, my tongue felt slow and awkward. I stumbled over words, and it felt like I wasn't making progress. But after 5 days of practice, something amazing happened. The sentences started to flow naturally and automatically. My brain was starting to recognize the patterns of English, and my confidence began to build. Step 2. Speaking to myself in English. The next step in my process was something that might sound strange, but it turned out to be incredibly powerful. I began speaking to myself in English every single day. It became a habit that helped me develop fluency and confidence in a way that was both natural and effective. At first, I practiced in situations where no one could hear me, like when I was alone in my room cooking or even in the shower. I would say things out loud like, "I am taking a shower. The water is hot. I feel relaxed. I'm making breakfast. I am cooking eggs. They are easy to cook. I like eggs." Initially, it felt a little silly talking to myself out loud, but then I realized something important. This was my private classroom. No one could hear me. No one could judge me. And I was free to experiment, make mistakes, and practice without fear. After just 1 week of this practice, my brain started thinking in English. This was huge because it meant that English was no longer something I just studied, it was becoming a part of my thought process. Step 3. Mimicking native speakers. The third step in my journey was to immerse myself further by learning from native speakers. Every day I would choose 5 sentences from movies or real-life conversations. Sentences that were useful, practical, and natural. I didn't just read them, I copied them exactly. I would repeat each sentence 10 times, trying to imitate the speaker's emotion speed and pronunciation. This was like a mini acting exercise, and it felt intense at times, but it worked. By repeating the sentences this way, I began to fix my accent and improve my pronunciation. I also became better at mimicking the rhythm and tone of native English speakers. This practice made me sound more natural and less hesitant when speaking. Results after 15 days. By the end of those first 15 days, I saw incredible progress. I stopped mentally translating from my native language before speaking. I could finally say basic sentences without hesitation. The words flowed out more naturally, and I started to feel more confident in my ability to express myself in English. That initial fear and self-doubt began to fade. I was no longer the person who froze up when trying to speak. Instead, I was gaining the confidence to have simple, meaningful conversations. But this was just the beginning. After these 15 days, I was ready for the real practice, the deeper, more immersive challenges that would take my English skills to the next level. Part 2. The real practice begins. By this point in my journey, I could say basic sentences without thinking too much, and my confidence had grown significantly. However, deep down I knew this wasn't enough. I didn't just want to say short, simple phrases, I wanted to have real conversations. I wanted to understand native speakers effortlessly, without needing to mentally translate everything in my head. I wanted to speak fluently with ease and confidence. That's when I decided to take it up a notch and create a new plan, a plan that would completely change everything. It was time for the real practice to begin. One thing I quickly realized was this: when I tried to speak English, my brain was still slow. Sure, I knew the words and phrases, but I couldn't piece them together quickly enough to form a natural, flowing conversation. My thoughts were scattered, and I found myself pausing often to find the right words. I knew I needed a method to help me speak English more naturally and fluently, something that would allow me to express myself without thinking so much about each word or sentence. That's when I came up with what I now call the question-answer method. It's a simple but incredibly powerful technique that transformed my speaking ability. Here's how it works. The question-answer method. 1. Start with a simple question in English. 2. Answer it immediately without overthinking or pausing. 3. Repeat the process with different answers each time, allowing yourself to expand and add more detail. This technique helped me train my brain to think in English without overthinking. It encouraged me to speak naturally, expand my answers, and push myself to speak for longer periods without hesitation. Let me give you an example of how I used it. Example 1. What did you do today? At first, my answer was very simple. I worked. Then I challenged myself to add more detail. I worked on my project. I expanded further. I worked on my project for 3 hours. Then I kept adding more. I worked on my project for 3 hours. Then I took a break. And eventually, I worked on my project for 3 hours. Then I took a break and had some coffee. With each repetition, I added more details to my answers, which forced me to think and speak more fluidly. This not only helped me speak faster, but also allowed me to improve my sentence structure and vocabulary. Example 2. What did you eat for breakfast? My first answer was simple. I ate eggs. Then I expanded. I ate eggs and toast. I added more. I ate eggs, toast, and a banana. Then I made it even more detailed. I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry. And finally, I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry, and I love eating a big breakfast. Again, I repeated this process, making my answers longer and more complex each time. This method trained my brain to get comfortable with thinking in English, speaking without hesitation, and automatically creating longer, more descriptive sentences. I practiced this daily for at least 30 minutes. Over time, my speaking speed improved dramatically. I could speak without pausing as often, and I stopped translating from my native language in my head. The more I practiced, the more fluent I became in putting my thoughts into English in real time. Tackling pronunciation. The echo technique. Building on the progress I made with speaking more fluently, I quickly realized that one of my biggest challenges was pronunciation. Even though I could now speak English with more confidence, I still sounded like a foreigner. Native speakers understood me, but my accent was strong enough that it was obvious I wasn't a native speaker. This was an issue I had to solve. I wanted my English to sound more natural, and I wanted to improve my pronunciation so that I could be understood clearly without giving away that I wasn't a native speaker. To do this, I turned to what I call the echo technique, a powerful method to improve pronunciation without needing a teacher. The echo technique. 1. Find a sentence from a movie, a podcast, or a native speaker. 2. Listen to the sentence carefully. Pay attention to how they pronounce each word, the rhythm of the sentence, and the emotion behind it. 3. Repeat the sentence immediately after hearing it, trying to match the pronunciation rhythm and emotion as closely as possible. 4. Repeat this process multiple times with different sentences until you feel comfortable with the pronunciation and flow. By practicing this technique every day, I was able to significantly improve my accent and sound more natural. I began to sound less like someone struggling with the language, and more like someone who belonged in an English-speaking environment. Advanced techniques. Mastering pronunciation and vocabulary. Here's how it works. To improve my pronunciation, I followed a simple yet powerful strategy that helped me speak more naturally. Step 1. I listened carefully to native speakers from a variety of sources: movies, YouTube videos, and podcasts. This gave me a diverse range of accents, tones, and speaking styles to work with. The key was to immerse myself in authentic English, not just what's taught in textbooks. Step 2. I paused the audio after each sentence. This gave me a moment to absorb the sound and rhythm of the sentence without rushing ahead. Step 3. I then repeated the sentence exactly as I heard it, matching the speed, tone, and emotion of the native speaker. For example, I took a short clip from a movie where the character said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I paused, took a deep breath, and repeated aloud, "I don't know what you're talking about." At first it was difficult. My voice didn't match the rhythm and I stumbled over some words. But after repeating it 10 times, I noticed my voice started to sound much closer to the original. Another example came from a podcast where the speaker said, "It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk." I paused. The audio repeated the sentence. "It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk," and then did it again and again. I made sure to match the intonation and speed of the speaker. I practiced this daily for 30 minutes at a time. After just 1 month of consistent practice, something amazing happened. Native speakers began saying, "Wow, your English sounds really natural." I was stunned because I had never expected such fast results. My pronunciation was improving, and I was sounding more like a native speaker than I ever thought possible. Building vocabulary with the story method. While pronunciation was improving, I knew that vocabulary was just as important. But memorizing long lists of words wasn't effective for me. It felt like I was just memorizing isolated pieces of information without context, and it wasn't sticking. So I decided to try a more engaging approach, the story method. Here's how it worked. First, I chose 5 new words every day. These words could come from anything I encountered during my day: movies, books, podcasts, or conversations. Second, I created a short story using all 5 words. By using the words in a context, it helped me understand them deeply and remember them better. Third, I read the story out loud 10 times. This helped reinforce both the vocabulary and my pronunciation. Speaking the words in context made them feel natural and real, not just like isolated vocabulary words. Finally, I made a point to use these new words in real conversations throughout the day. The goal was to make these words part of my active vocabulary, so I wasn't just memorizing them, I was living them. For example, let's say my new words were excited, invitation, party, arrive, surprise. My story might go like this. I was very excited because I received an invitation to a big party. When I arrived at the party, I was greeted with a huge surprise. It was actually my birthday party. This approach worked wonders for me because I wasn't just memorizing isolated words, I was using them in a meaningful context. It was much more engaging, and it helped me recall the words naturally when I needed them. I practiced this daily, and after just 3 months, I had learned over 1,000 new words without the stress of memorizing endless lists. Thinking directly in English. One of the biggest hurdles language learners face is thinking in their native language first, and then translating it into English. This process makes speaking slow and unnatural, and it becomes a major barrier when trying to have a fluid conversation. I realized I had to break this cycle if I wanted to improve my fluency. So I made a conscious effort to train my brain to think directly in English. This was challenging at first. My brain would instinctively try to translate thoughts from Portuguese, my native language, into English. But I didn't give up. I consciously practiced thinking in English throughout my day. Here's how I did it. When I woke up in the morning, I would start by thinking in English about the day ahead. I didn't translate anything. I just let my thoughts flow in English. When I was out and about, I would describe things I saw or experienced in English, such as, "That's a beautiful tree." "It's sunny outside." "People are walking to work." During conversations, I stopped thinking in Portuguese and immediately responded in English. As I continued practicing this daily, I noticed something incredible. Thinking in English became easier. The more I practiced, the less I had to think about the words before speaking. English was no longer a translation from Portuguese. It was becoming my primary thought process. Here's how I trained my brain to think directly in English step by step. Step 1. Describe everything around me in English. Whenever I was outside or even just at home, I made it a habit to describe my surroundings out loud or silently in my mind using English. For example, while walking down the street, I would think the sky is blue, the weather is hot. I see people walking by. That man is wearing a red shirt. This simple exercise helped me associate English words with my daily environment. It made English a natural part of how I viewed the world, instead of a separate subject I had to study. Step 2. Ask and answer questions to myself. Next, I started asking myself questions in English and answering them immediately. This practice helped me think on my feet and form sentences without hesitation. For instance, I would ask, "What am I doing right now?" and answer, "I am sitting in a chair, drinking coffee and writing in my notebook." These daily mental conversations built my fluency and helped me become comfortable speaking about everyday activities. Step 3. Writing a daily journal in English. To reinforce my thinking and speaking practice, I began writing a daily journal in English every night. At first, my sentences were very simple, short phrases and basic vocabulary, but over the course of a month, my writing improved significantly. My sentences became longer and more natural, and I felt more confident expressing my thoughts in written English. Writing helped solidify my understanding and forced me to organize my ideas clearly. The amazing result: no more mental translation. After just a few weeks of these exercises, I noticed something truly amazing. I no longer had to translate in my head from Portuguese to English. Instead, English words and phrases started to come to me naturally. It was as if my brain had switched gears and began thinking directly in English. This was a crucial turning point that accelerated my speaking fluency tremendously. A powerful daily rule: speak English for 2 hours every day. One simple but powerful rule I set for myself was to speak English for at least 2 hours every day, no excuses. It didn't matter if I was alone or busy. If I had no one to talk to, I would talk to myself. If I was cooking, cleaning, or walking, I spoke aloud. Even on days when I felt lazy or unmotivated, I reminded myself English is my future. I cannot quit. This daily commitment to speaking became the backbone of my progress and kept me accountable to my goals. Part 3. My final breakthrough. By this stage, I had built strong habits of listening, repeating, and thinking in English. But I realized something important: simply speaking and repeating phrases wasn't enough. If I wanted to speak clearly and naturally, I needed a deeper understanding of English grammar and sentence structure. I began paying close attention to how native speakers structured their sentences in everyday conversation. I didn't just repeat phrases blindly anymore. I asked myself, why is this sentence structured like this? For example, I often heard native speakers say, "I have been learning English for 5 months." But back in school, I had been taught to say, "I am learning English for 5 months." This was my first big revelation that the English taught in traditional classrooms often sounds very different from the English people actually speak daily. Understanding these differences helped me adjust my grammar naturally and speak more like a native. It was the final piece that brought everything together and pushed me from basic communication to confident, natural fluency. Determined to bridge the gap between the English I had learned in classrooms and the way people actually spoke in everyday life, I began diving deep into the practical use of grammar and sentence structure. I was curious about the real reasons native speakers chose certain tenses over others. For example, when do people use the present perfect tense? Why do they say, "I have been learning English for 5 months"? instead of "I am learning English for 5 months." These nuances made a huge difference in helping me sound natural and fluent. To keep track of everything, I created my own grammar notebook where I wrote down common sentence structures and practiced them actively. This hands-on approach helped me understand the patterns and rhythms of real spoken English far beyond what textbooks had taught me. One of the most challenging areas was mastering prepositions, those small but tricky words like on, in, and at that often confuse learners. For example, why do we say on the bus, but in the car? Why is it at night, but in the morning? To tackle this, I carried a small notebook specifically for prepositions. I wrote down the ones I struggled with and added example sentences for each. Whenever I encountered new or confusing prepositions, I would look them up online or listen closely to native speakers to understand how they used them naturally in conversation. To deepen my language skills even further, I made it a habit to write a daily diary in English every night. At first, my sentences were short and simple. Today, I went to work. I was tired. I ate pizza. It was good. But I wanted to improve. So I started reading blogs, books, and news articles, paying close attention to how native speakers constructed their sentences and expressed ideas. Then I tried to mimic that style in my diary entries, experimenting with sentence variety, tenses, and expressions. Over time, my writing became more fluid and natural, helping me internalize the language on a deeper level. One of the most effective practices that accelerated my progress was something called shadowing. I would find videos of native English speakers, TED Talks, interviews, or YouTube videos put on my headphones and repeat every word immediately after the speaker. I tried to match their speed, intonation, and pronunciation as closely as possible. This exercise helped me connect what I heard with how I spoke, building both my listening skills and pronunciation simultaneously. Shadowing became like a workout for my mouth and brain, strengthening my fluency and making my English sound more authentic. Building on all these techniques, I committed to practicing consistently for at least 20 minutes every day. Within a few weeks, my pronunciation improved significantly. But I didn't stop there. I also began watching English movies regularly, not just passively, but actively. I paused after every sentence, repeated it aloud, and focused on mimicking the pronunciation, tone, and rhythm. This deliberate practice helped me sound more like a native speaker and gave me the confidence to keep pushing forward. By this stage, I realized a powerful truth: learning English is not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's also about building confidence. So many people understand English but hesitate to speak because they fear making mistakes. I made a decision. Then I would no longer let fear hold me back. I began speaking English whenever I had the chance, whether at work, at the store, or with friends. I spoke even when I wasn't sure I was correct. To my surprise, people understood me and didn't laugh at my mistakes. This gave me the courage I needed to continue improving. The biggest challenge was yet to come: talking to native English speakers. I was terrified that I wouldn't be understood, or that I'd freeze under pressure. To prepare, I created a strategy. I picked 10 common conversation topics and practiced answering questions related to them every day. Questions like, "How was your day?" "What do you do for work?" "What's your favorite food?" I rehearsed these questions and answers until I could respond fluently and confidently. Finally, I took a leap of faith and joined an online English practice group where people from around the world came together to learn and speak English. At first I was nervous, but I soon realized everyone there was in the same boat, making mistakes and learning together. I made friends from different countries, and we encouraged each other every day. This experience not only boosted my English skills, but also made learning enjoyable and motivating. As I reached the final stage of my journey, I felt a new, unshakable confidence growing within me. I was no longer the person who was held back by poor English skills or fear of speaking. Step by step, through consistent effort, smart strategies, and the right mindset, I had transformed myself into a confident, capable English speaker ready to take on new challenges. Now I want to share with you the most important lesson I learned on this journey, a lesson that I hope will inspire you and show you that true fluency is within your reach if you stay dedicated. One ordinary day, I was standing in front of the mirror speaking English aloud, just like I had done countless times before. But this time, something was different. The hesitation that used to freeze me was gone. The mental translation from my native language had disappeared. The words flowed naturally, smoothly, and effortlessly, as if they were coming from inside me without any barriers. It almost felt magical, but deep down, I knew it was the result of months of unwavering commitment, consistent practice, and relentless effort. That very same day, I decided to push myself further and test my progress in the real world. I signed up for an online conversation group where people from all around the globe gathered to discuss various topics in English. My heart was pounding and nerves crept in, but I quickly reminded myself of how far I had come. I had invested too much time and energy to let fear take over now. When it was finally my turn to speak, the words came out clearly and confidently. I didn't fumble or search for the right expressions. I understood what others were saying without confusion or anxiety. The group listened attentively, nodded in agreement, and even asked me questions. That moment was one of the most incredible and unforgettable experiences of my life. It was the day I truly knew I had achieved fluency. Just 5 months after starting my English journey, I made the bold decision to apply for my dream job once again. This time I was a completely different person, no longer nervous, hesitant, or doubtful. I walked into the interview room with a confidence I had never known before. Sitting across from the interviewer, I spoke clearly and naturally. I answered every question with ease, showing not only my skills, but the confidence I had built. I wasn't just speaking English, I was owning the language. My voice conveyed my determination, growth, and the resilience that had brought me here. I could see it in their eyes. The interviewers were impressed, not only by my language skills, but by the journey I had taken and the effort I had invested. They saw a candidate who had transformed and was ready to contribute. A few days later, I received the phone call that changed everything. "Alex, congratulations, you got the job." For a moment, I was speechless. The very company that had rejected me months ago was now offering me the opportunity I had dreamed of. My dream was no longer distant, it was real. My starting salary was $5,000 a month, a figure far beyond what I had ever imagined. I stood there holding the phone, trembling with emotion as tears welled up in my eyes. The first call I made was to my parents. "Mom, Dad, I did it," I said, my voice thick with emotion. On the other end, my mother began to cry, overwhelmed with pride and joy. My father, a man of few words, and rarely showing emotion, simply said, "We always knew you could." In that unforgettable moment, I realized this journey was never just about me. It was about honoring my parents, their sacrifices, their unwavering belief in me, even when I doubted myself. Their support had been the foundation that held me up through every challenge. With my very first paycheck, I bought my father a beautiful watch, something he had admired but never treated himself to. For my mother, I purchased a delicate gold necklace, a small but heartfelt token of gratitude for everything she had done for me and our family. When I gave them these gifts, they initially refused, saying softly, "We don't need anything, son." But I shook my head firmly and replied, "No, this is my way of saying thank you. Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." And in that moment, everything came full circle. Every struggle, every late night studying, every moment of frustration, and every time I wanted to give up, it had all been worth it. Every step of the journey had led me to this beautiful, life-changing moment. Key lessons from my English learning journey. Now I want to share with you the most important lessons I learned throughout my journey lessons that completely transformed my English skills and helped me achieve fluency in just a few months. These are the insights I believe can help you too, whether you're just starting out or looking to take your English to the next level. The first and most powerful lesson mindset is everything. The biggest obstacle that holds most people back from learning English isn't the language itself, it's the belief that they can't do it. I struggled with this mindset for a long time. I told myself, I'm just not good at English, which became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But the moment I changed the way I thought, everything shifted. I started telling myself, English is a skill I can develop. It's not impossible. I am improving every day. This simple shift in mindset was the foundation of all my progress. If you believe you cannot do something, your brain will find reasons to confirm that. But if you believe you can, and truly commit to it, you will find a way. Your mindset shapes your reality more than anything else. Lesson 2. Surround yourself with English. Constantly, immersion is key. I made English a natural and constant part of my daily life. I changed the language settings on my phone and computer to English, so every notification, every menu forced me to engage with the language. I watched only English movies, TV shows, and videos, even if I didn't understand every word at first. I listened to English songs, absorbing the rhythms and sounds without worrying about catching every lyric. I also followed English-speaking influencers and content creators on social media to see how English was used in everyday contexts. Most importantly, I made a habit of naming everything around me in English. If I saw a car, I would think, that's a blue car. It's driving fast. These small daily habits accumulated over time and helped me expand my vocabulary and fluency naturally. Lesson 3. Speak without fear or judgment. One of the hardest barriers is the fear of making mistakes, sounding foolish, or being misunderstood. I faced this fear head-on by forcing myself to speak as much as possible. I talked to shopkeepers in English, asked strangers for directions, and even spoke aloud to myself when I was alone. The more I practiced, the more my confidence grew. I realized native speakers don't expect perfection. They appreciate the effort. Making mistakes is a natural and necessary part of learning. The key is to keep speaking regardless of errors. The more you speak, the better you get, and the more fearless you become. Lesson 4. Active listening and shadowing. Listening is just as crucial as speaking. I trained my ears by listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and conversations between native speakers. But I didn't just listen passively, I practiced shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and immediately repeating it, mimicking the exact pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. This technique helped me improve my accent, intonation, and fluency all at once. By connecting what I heard with what I said, my English became smoother, more natural, and more confident. Lesson 5. Learn vocabulary in context, not lists. Initially, I tried memorizing long lists of isolated words, but I quickly realized that wasn't effective. Instead, I focused on learning vocabulary in context phrases and sentences where words naturally fit. For example, rather than just memorizing the word happy, I learned phrases like, I feel so happy today, or that movie made me really happy. Learning words as part of meaningful sentences made it easier to remember and use them naturally during conversations. Lesson 6. Grammar comes from using English, not memorizing rules. I didn't spend hours buried in grammar textbooks. Instead, I learned grammar by speaking and listening. When I made mistakes, I noted them and corrected myself. For example, I once said, "He go to school." When corrected, I realized the right form was, "He goes to school." This experiential learning helped me internalize grammar naturally, without memorizing complicated rules. The best way to learn grammar is through real use, speaking, writing, and listening regularly. Lesson 7. Consistency over perfection. Many learners wait to feel ready or perfect before they start speaking, but that approach slows progress. I began speaking from day one, even when I knew just a few words. I made a rule to do something in English every single day, whether it was speaking for 10 minutes, writing a short paragraph, or listening to a podcast. Consistency was the key. Even on days when I felt tired, unmotivated, or lazy, I pushed myself to practice a little. These small daily habits compounded into massive progress over time. You don't need expensive courses or a perfect environment to succeed. What you need is a strong desire, determination, and the daily habit of practice. Now imagine yourself 6 months from now speaking English fluently and confidently, opening doors to new opportunities, travel, friendships, and career growth. Imagine the pride you'll feel for persevering, learning, and breaking through your fears. Your journey to fluency starts today. Keep moving forward. You're closer than you think. Start today. Speak, listen, practice, and never give up. Your future self will thank you for the effort and dedication you put in right now. Remember, this journey is about so much more than just learning English. It's about transforming your entire life. Right now, I want to speak directly to you. If I can do it, so can you. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter how limited or bad you feel your English skills are today. What truly matters is that you take that first step. Start today, this very moment. I know it's tough. I understand that sometimes it feels overwhelming, even impossible. But trust me on this. The only thing standing between you and fluency is consistent effort, day in and day out. That's the secret no one talks about enough. So stop doubting yourself. Stop making excuses that hold you back. Surround yourself with English. Speak it, listen to it, read it, and write it every single day. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Embrace them as your greatest teachers. Learn from every error and keep improving. Here's the truth that changed everything for me. The pain of discipline, of pushing yourself to practice, even when you don't feel like it, is temporary. But the pain of regret, wishing you had started sooner or worked harder, lasts forever. So what will you choose? Choose discipline. Choose growth. Choose success. Your incredible journey to fluency starts right now. If this story inspired you, please like this video and subscribe to PowerHab English. I promise to be with you every step of the way, providing the support, motivation, and practical guidance you need to succeed. Let's take this journey together. Let's make your dream of speaking English fluently a reality.